welcome to the Talkin Kop. My name is Ashley, and I'm joined tonight by my friend Chris. And we're going to talk about the match preview between Liverpool and West Ham this weekend at Anfield. So, Chris, haven't seen you in a few days. How have you been? Everything going good?
Yeah, good. Kids football coaching, working, usual
Yes.
usual excitements. But the women are in the FA Cup quarter final, which is very exciting. Got to see them
That's
win
good.
another game, which is good. And they got a nice draw in the quarter final. They got Charlton away, who are division below. So all in all, it was good. I had to sit in the ground. I had to sit in St Helens Stadium watching the men's game on my phone, which I was regretting for most of it. I had to be honest, because it was one of the most boring games of football I've ever watched in my life. But a win's a win. But yeah, we're a bit threadbare today. We're a bit like Liverpool's bench at the moment.
Yeah. Apologies for that, folks. We do have people that are off work or doing other shows later tonight. So it's just us today. You'll have to grin and bear it, much like the Reds and their bench. Look, let's get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way before we get into the match, because there were a couple of things that happened today. So one of the things that happened early this morning was the draw for the Champions League. And unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen that we ended up kind of on the tougher side of the bracket. So Liverpool got Galatasaray in this next round of 16. They will play the winners of PSG versus Chelsea. On the same side of our bracket is Real Madrid, Manchester City, Atalanta, and Bayern Munich. So the left side of the bracket contains all of the Champions League winners since 2016. And on the right side of the bracket, we have Newcastle, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Spurs, Glimt, Sporting, Bayer Leverkusen, and Arsenal. So, look, I don't think there's any way of sugarcoating the fact that we definitely got sort of the harder of the draws. But, Chris, sometimes that's what this competition is all about. You're in it so that you can face the big teams. And, Liverpool in this year or years gone by tend to do better against bigger teams. So that's what I'm going to be telling myself with
Yeah,
regards to this draw. I think once you're in it, you're
I,
going to face hard teams.
I,
Um,
yeah. I
it
tried
is
to
what
make you
it is,
feel.
right?
I tried. Well, not trying to make you feel better, but I know a lot have said, "Oh, last year we got PSG. Look at Arsenal's run, yada yada yada." And I get the frustration. Liverpool were unlucky last year in the sense that PSG had an absolute shitter of a league form. So that actually we ended up getting us in the round of 16. Because if Liverpool got past PSG in the round of 16, the run PSG had after that were a lot more winnable. And we'd have looked at it and gone, that's quite a nice run to a final, actually. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just the way it falls sometimes. Listen, the pressure's actually all on Arsenal because there is no excuse for Arsenal not to get to a semi final now. There's none because the side of a draw that's fell for them, that's the way it falls. Their most difficult game will be if they get to a semi final and they'll face probably Barcelona or Atletico Madrid, and
Mm-hmm.
that'll be interesting for us because I actually think we've seen for Arsenal fans won't like this, but for 20 years in the two big trophies, the Premier League and the Champions League, when the pressures come, at the moment they haven't shown they can get over the line. Liverpool have got two league trophies and a Champions League trophy in the last six. So, it's the options there. I think the way this Liverpool side's set up in a weird way, being on the more on paper difficult side of a draw, probably suits us. Because I kind of feel like when a game on paper looks more straightforward, a la Forest,
Mm-hmm.
I think Liverpool struggle with them. I actually think they are better against teams that are going like, right, no messing about today, no silliness. This is PSG, this is Galatasaray. These are teams that can hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But Galatasaray aren't one that are going to sit deep like you see in the Premier League. PSG definitely, if you get past them, PSG definitely won't sit deep. If PSG don't get past Chelsea, Chelsea could do that. But you're generally playing a lot of sides that like to play football, and I think that suits us better. I know we said
Yep.
that against City, and it doesn't always work out because but sometimes you do just face good sides.
Yeah,
But
it happens.
I'm looking forward to them. I think. I mean, Liverpool have got a challenge now because they've apparently never won away at Galatasaray in the Champions League. So there's a record to try and break. There's a hoodoo to try and break. I mean, they don't have to because it's over two legs. A draw's
Yeah.
fine. But
And
it's a
we get
nice
the
thing.
home leg second, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, as part of our kind of uh I don't know, award for being kind of toward the top of that table, I believe.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I'd rather be in their shoes than poor Newcastle. I think we put it in the chat before. I mean, I say poor David.
Well, let me read out their run, because it definitely, I feel like it could be worse. So Newcastle's run from the beginning of March through the end of March goes in order: home to Manchester United, home to Manchester City, home to Barcelona, away to Chelsea, away to Barcelona again, and then home to Sunderland. So that March is about as hard as you can get. Maybe, I guess you could probably have a few more away matches in there, but that's about as hard as you can get for Newcastle.
But flip it the other way. If you win most of them or get positive results in most of them, fuck me, that puts you on some high. The one benefit for Newcastle in some ways, I say it's a benefit, because they're playing Man City and Chelsea around Barcelona. Man City have got Real Madrid, Chelsea have got PSG, so they're also going to have to rotate and have one eye on the Champions League. It's not like Man City have got through and got Bodo Glimt.
True.
I know Bodo Glimt have beat Man City, but do you know what I mean? On paper, they've got like Sporting, and you go, well, City have beat Sporting, or Chelsea have beat Sporting. PSG and Real Madrid, you're not. While Real Madrid aren't the Real Madrid of a couple of years ago, you are still going. They've still got players that can hurt you, and Real Madrid by then will probably have quite a few of their injured players back. And PSG are PSG. We know how difficult they are, and they always find ways. Although maybe not as good as last season at the moment, but PSG and Real Madrid feel a bit like early '90s Germany. Once the serious stuff starts, you start to worry because they're always there or thereabouts. So I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy Champions League. That's the best thing about it is the big games under the lights.
Yeah,
that's what you're in it for.
They work hard to get there. Yeah, they've worked really hard to get there. I mean, you want to have those big marquee games like that. That's what you're there for. That's what's gonna put bums on seats and everything. So, and I think you mentioned something there with Newcastle where if you can get a little bit of momentum in a couple of hard games, like that can really bounce you forward in this competition. So the idea of maybe like yes, and well, the idea of maybe like a little bit of a revenge match against Galatasaray for that ridiculous penalty, a little bit of a revenge match against PSG if that ends up being our opponent. I could see us kind of creating a little bit of a narrative around this. And the nice thing is the rest of that bracket, the Real Madrid, the Manchester City, the Atalanta, the Bayern Munich, you can only face one of them. So 3 really good teams are going to get eliminated from that side of the bracket. So, it's just food for thought.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, if I'm looking at the bottom half of the bracket, I'd probably say the favourite out of them 4 is probably Bayern Munich because they have a league. Yeah. They have a league where they can rest and they can rotate. Their form in the Champions League was really good. I mean, I think they only got beat by Arsenal. I say, you know what I mean. So they were in good form. They've got goals in them. Luis and Diaz and Kane and Elise. So I would expect them to get past Atalanta, and I think they'd cause City or Madrid big issues.
Yeah, that'll be a good watch. Actually, I'd be curious to see. I'd be curious to see like a City against Bayern, because I feel like there's been a lot of chatter this year about how Bayern Munich aren't necessarily the force that everyone thinks they are in Europe.
I think it's because the only big test the only real big test they had was Arsenal, and look, credit to Arsenal. Arsenal beat them pretty comfortably.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I still find it difficult to look past Manchester City as the favorites there, but yeah. The other little bit of housekeeping was the information about Liverpool's financial results coming out. So the total revenue overall was positive. So total revenue went up from £89 million to £703 million. The margin, however, ends up being a profit after tax of just about $8 million. So because of all of the bonuses, because of the increases in administrative costs, because of the staff costs going up quite a bit, and a lot of that comes with the bonuses that come after you win a league. The margin isn't as big as maybe we thought, but it's still a positive margin. And I think it's one of the only positive margins in the league, if not the only positive margin in the league after this season. Some other numbers that are worthwhile reading is that the media revenue for Liverpool went up from 60 million to 264 million. The matchday revenue went up from 14 million to 116 million. Commercial revenue went from 15 to 323. And then, like I said, those administrative costs and staff costs went up a lot. So you're talking 57 million to 657 million. Staff goes 42 million to 428 million. So that's where a lot of the money went.
But some of that, it's some of that also the player bonuses as well
Absolutely.
for
Yes.
winning
Player
stuff,
bonuses, staff bonuses, all of that gets
and there's still
incorporated into that.
a compensation fee that's being paid out to the former management team, which I know was upset a few people saying Jurgen Klopp decided to leave. But I don't think it's paying Jurgen Klopp. I think it's paying his staff. Because when Klopp said I'm leaving, all the staff are out of a job. So I think they're all getting there'll be severance pays with mutual consent ones anyway.
Yeah, it's things that every club has to deal with,
Yeah.
really. There's always, going to be paperwork there. But in general, to see Liverpool have that positive uptick, I think was fantastic. The other thing that came out of that report is that Liverpool now have the biggest wage bill in all of the Premier League. Again, largely due to bonuses paid out
It
for
won't be that
the
next season.
Premier League. Yes, it won't be that for next season. Granted, if they win the Champions League, there would be bonuses attached to that.
This is true.
But
I still
for
think
everyone that says that Liverpool can't necessarily compete with Manchester City or things like that, just keeping that in mind, that this year they do have the highest wage bill.
Yeah, Liverpool just don't do as many players. Perhaps the starting wage, the starting basic wage for some of our top end players probably isn't as big as what you would expect at Manchester City. But the bonus structures they have sorted out. I'm sure we read a few years ago, Mo Salah hasn't earned 300 grand or 400 grand a week for fucking ages.
I think he's at about 800 grand when it includes all the bonuses that were paid out.
And I'm sure someone said he was close to $1 million when we won the Champions League and the league
with sponsorships and things like that. Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah,
people just focus on whichever stat suits them. Which, to be fair, was a bit of a focus of Slot's press conference of you can spin a stat whichever way you want to.
That was interesting. Yeah, he felt like he was in a little bit like a humorously spiky mood. Which was, I don't know, maybe a nice change from all of the press conferences he's done where his head has been on the chopping block, so to speak.
But it was nice though because it was obviously him and Salah had their falling out, as we all know about it, but that wasn't backing his player going, well, when you've got high standards, people are surprised when you perhaps don't hit them. But it's nice to you only include the Premier League because he's not scored in nineties, but you ignore the fact he scored in the Champions League, got an assist Champions League, and scored in the FA Cup against the Premier League side. He goes, but whatever suits you. And then he did the same with Rio. Yes, Rio hasn't played a lot of minutes yet in the Premier League, so he's played a lot in the cups though, hasn't he? So
yeah,
it was just him back sort of backing his players, backing his methodology. I mean, my opinion on the whole Rio thing has always been I'm fine with Rio not starting games. I think at his age, I don't think he's probably quite ready to start games. I think when he has started games, he's done okay, but hasn't been as effective. I think he's more effective coming on against tired legs. My frustration with Rio, and to a lesser extent Chiesa, is I'd hate the fact we throw them on when we're either 2 or 3 nil down, or we throw them on with 10 minutes to go, where I feel like they can make very little impact. I feel what we did against Forest was better, where they got 15, 20 minutes.
It got thrown out around 60, 65 minutes, I think. Which gave them enough time to really make. I
think we've done that a little bit more with Rio or Chiesa. I think then you'd have gone, that's probably fair then, because then you go in, they're not starters, but they're a bit better than what you call a squad player. They're like finishers, as has been the new vogue phrase. But I also think because Rio got settled, they realised very quickly the best side to go was down the right. So they swapped him and Chiesa back over and said, get the pace to Rio on the right. And Nico Williams was hating it. And look, Nico Williams had a really good game. He's a really good defender. And he was hating having to deal with Rio. What Rio did bring in his game, which he probably wasn't doing earlier in the season, he's got rid of that sort of Ben Doak stigma, which was he was beating a man, but then there was a purpose at the end of it. It was
no
a
end
cross,
product.
It was a cross, or it was a shot. Whereas I think in his earlier time for Liverpool, he'd beat the man, beat him again, go back, and he'd beat the guy 3 times. He didn't know when the cross was coming in. Whereas more, it was a trick move. I'm going to whip across him. And then, Ekitike knew where to react for it. And so just, other players in the pitch, they know what's coming, so they know how to time the runs better. And the good thing now is everyone's looked at Rio and gone, Well, on the left, he cuts inside and does the Gakpo. He can do the Gakpo thing, but on the right, he's happy to go around people and has got a cross in him. He's not just a speed merchant, so makes him an interesting prospect, I would think.
Yeah.
Saying all that, he won't start this weekend, but we'll come to that in a
Well,
minute.
yeah, no, I mean, Slot was asked twice in the pre-mass press conference about Rio potentially starting, and he didn't do his kind of token. Oh, he's played more minutes than any 17-year-old. Blah 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 blah. He didn't do that, which was nice. He did speak very highly of his mentality, of his upbringing, of his hunger. So I expect Rio to get integrated a little bit more as we kind of hit the tail end of the season. It sounded like Slot was really happy with his development, with the way that he was kind of bulking up and also maturing as well. So
Well,
that's go ahead.
speaking of his maturing, they let him do an interview,
Yeah, they did earlier. Let me see if I can pull up those quotes because they
which
were
we were all surprised they allowed. Not they allowed it, but they're normally more protective of young players as when they put them in front of the media. They tend to put young players in front of the media for more, either like they've scored the winner so they can get the adulation, or more of a sit down, calm situation. But actually, he was allowed. He did interview after the Forest game, and he was pretty standard stuff. But he pretty much said, he wants more minutes and he wants to have more minutes to improve. But then get the very mature answer of, when I do get my minutes, I need to make sure they count. And that's kind of the attitude you want, which is, I want to play more minutes. You want to hear every footballer say that. But then he's also putting the onus on himself, which is, when I get my opportunity, I must use it. If I don't use it, I won't get more minutes. And you've got
yeah,
to say to him, well, you got your opportunity. You were the most creative of all the four wide players, and you were on the pitch for 20 minutes, and you had a heavy involvement in us winning the game. I mean, sorry,
yeah.
the goal that was disallowed. The cross to Akatika was brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean he wasn't directly involved in the final goal, but he was in and around it and he was causing problems and giving defenders things to think about. The quotes themselves, I'll just read them because they're quite short. The first one says, "I just need to keep pushing and keep gaining the manager's trust, and hopefully that leads to more minutes. If the opportunity is there to take on a man, I will do it any day of the week. I know when I come on that I need to at least do something to try to impact the game, whether that is on the ball or off the ball. So whether it is like trying to put in a tackle or press to win the ball back, put balls back into the box, have shots on target, or just beat my man, I will." He explained his outlook on his limited role this season. He said, "I feel like if you are not playing as much, then you can stagnate. So I want to gain more minutes." He continued and spoke very highly of Slot. He said, "The manager is very important to me and he gives me a lot. After training, he gives me all of the right things. We always have a meeting and he tells me how well I'm doing. And he shows me certain clips of training. And all the staff here are very important and very helpful." So, for a 17-year-old, that's about as glowing of a review as you're going to get. And, in terms of media training and getting out there, having an interview, I think all good things from our young red. Speaking of young reds, let's talk about Oshin's little update here. So Cone, is it Kone or Cone? We're gonna
We'll
go
say
with Kone Doherty. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. He was just moved on from our youth team over to Mold in Norway for a fee of 750,000 euros. There is a buyback clause and there is also a sell on clause. So the reason he was able to move is because their window is open at a different time than the English window. This move has kind of been in the pipeline for a little while. There were a lot of people that were curious if he'd make the move to go to Norway. But I think the idea of a buyback clause in there kind of secures his future if we decide that he matures and is good enough in that league. Absolutely. But he's 19 years old, probably wants minutes. I think they were guaranteeing him a starting role in that team, which was
I think
part
so.
of the bait
I
for
mean,
that. But I think it's a good move for him.
I think so. I mean, historically, Molde are a very big side in their country. I mean, I think they're going for a dip. I think I'm just looking. They finished 10th last year, so it's sort of been overtaken by Viking and Bodø Glint and Brann. But Rosenborg aren't the force they used to be. So looks like they're developing like a young side again to try and push on because I think that's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's old team, isn't it? Back in
I
the
think
day.
so.
So, look, it's a good move for him. Look, I think it's good for young players if they think, I'm not going to get the breakthrough here, try me hand abroad. It worked for
Mhm.
Peter Crouch. He went to Sweden on loan for 6 months and then came back. Sometimes it'll do him good, taking a sideways step and then seeing where it takes him. The fact that Liverpool put a buyback clause and a sell clause, they obviously feel there's something with him. You
Yeah.
know, maybe they don't think he's quite ready for the first team, but I mean, talk is Liverpool did want him to extend. When they realised they wouldn't, they've made sure they've protected themselves. So if he does take off, Alaquanza and a few others, they've keep themselves covered. So good move for him. And look, anyways, from a club's perspective, and look, I know certain fans will hate this, but 750 grand for a lad who's never kicked the ball for the first team. You can't argue. It's just
It's part of the process. And I think they have the young 16-year-old is it Abe
yeah.
Abe? I don't know how you pronounce his name. He's coming through. I think they have hopes of him sort of breaking into that right wing space that he was occupying and I think Kieran Morrison is there as well. So there's a couple
Well, he was
players
on the
in that role.
he was on the bench, wasn't he, at the weekend? Yeah, I mean, he might be on the bench again this weekend because of lack of numbers. But the other thing for the academy is if the academy doesn't make players for Liverpool first team, whether people like it or not, the main function of an academy is to self fund itself and make the club money so they could go buy either more youth prospects or use that money towards first team players. So 750 grand, that goes into, you know, keeping the lights on in the academy almost, because it's kind of a self fulfilling thing. That's how academies work. Look, Chelsea have made millions off their academy. Most of them don't touch the first team. That's what they're there for. I know people don't like that, but most of the time with academies, that's what the players will do. They're there to make you money.
Yeah, well, it's also there to progress the players and make sure that there's a pathway out of the academy into professional football for those players so that they're
Yeah,
not just sitting and playing in your reserve teams. So if he
yeah.
goes and gets a good move, I think that can only be good. Um, let's switch our focus back to sort of the matter at hand because we haven't really talked about the game. So we are going to be facing West Ham at home. Um, if I kind of hearken you back to West Ham at the beginning of this season when we played them away, that game was sort of the game that stopped the rot, so to speak. It was right at that end of atrocious results, which I'm not going to kind of bring us all back to or read through. But that West Ham result, it ended up being 2-0 in favor of the Reds, kind of helped to kind of stabilize the ship. Chris, going into this game, do you feel like things have shifted? Do you think that Liverpool are in a better place? I know that watching that Forest game is not going to fill you with confidence, but do you think that Liverpool are in a better place? And what do you think about where West Ham are?
I mean, I think performances aren't really where we want them to be. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, actually, the West Ham win was actually a good performance. Um, I think people still wanted us to have performances. I kind of feel like I just don't think it's going to happen this year. I think it's, at this time of the season now, it is all about the results. And to be fair to Liverpool, I think we've scored more goals than last year. We've got more set piece goals than last year. We're conceding less. I think we've got 3 clean sheets in a row. It's a while since we've
Yeah,
said
something
while since
wild.
whilst we've said that, we actually score from corners in the Premier League, which is honestly you and me do cartwheels every time that happens because it's so rare. So I think look, there are signs of improvement, and look, whether you like the manager, don't like the manager, you can't not say there hasn't been improvements. You can say the performances are still pretty erratic and probably not where we want them to be, and I think that's fair. That first half against Forest was atrocious, and I think we've seen even this year quite a few first halves that haven't been great. Not as bad as the Forest one, but haven't been great. But ultimately,
Mm,
Liverpool have generally been finding a way. You know, 32 games they've lost them in injury time when they kind of self fulfilling prophecies, which shows Liverpool still aren't where you want them to be. In a weird way, Chelsea and United also being in pretty decent form has probably given Liverpool a bit of a kick up the arse of like, this not getting Champions League is actually a thing. So you really need to get going. And to be fair to Liverpool, they've kept pace. We're level with Chelsea, and we're only 3 points behind United. And as we're speaking, I think Villa are currently 1-0 down to Wolves. So if that stays as it is, Liverpool again, this were we got to say to them another opportunity. You could actually close the gap on Villa to 3 points, and if you do that, it then becomes 4 teams for 2 spots, as opposed to probably at the beginning of the year, it felt like 3 teams for 1 spot. It could soon be 4 teams fighting for 2 spots, and that will be interesting how it goes. United probably will be the favourites to get a top 4 position because, quite simply, they've got no FA Cup football, no League Cup football, no European football. They've literally got 1 game a week. They have really no excuses, Man United, now, not to get top 4. It'd be pretty. It'd be a pretty big fall. So the pressure is on Liverpool and Chelsea because they've got the heavier fixture schedule. Villa have to a point, but I do wonder if Villa will just bin off the Europa League if they think there's a chance of Champions League. I just think that might happen. I also think that Europa League you can get away with rotating a little bit more. So, but in general, though, it's fine. The only probably concern I have with Liverpool is, I think, to be fair, the manager highlighted it. It wasn't just talking about Mo Salah. He also said if you look at the rest of the team, we're probably not scoring enough for all the chances we get.
I mean, I think that's fair. I think Ekitike and Gakpo haven't really been setting the world alight in the most recent games. It did feel like Ekitike had a bit of a little revival. But, the one thing about this game...
I thought he played better against Forest than the press and some of the post-match made out. I thought actually he was a little bit in and out, but I actually thought he was a pretty good presence. And also, it's very rare we see Ekitike beyond 70. And the fact he was still there in injury time, the header... Maybe he should score, but I think you've got to give the keeper credit. It's some save.
I think that had an XG of 0.95, which is about as high as you can possibly get outside of just an empty net. So yeah, I understand. It was a good save. I still think he should do better, just given his positioning and everything like that. But part of that is maybe not having Florian Wirtz on the side, and we'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to talk about our injuries. Before I do that, one of the interesting quotes that came out of Alexis McAllister after that Forest game was sort of his assessment of the game, and I'm going to read it really quick. So he said, we need to analyze what we did well and what we did wrong. The intensity wasn't there, but we did what we needed to win. It was a different shape and a different way to play. It didn't work, but we will keep working, and next game we can do better. We need the points to qualify for the Champions League. Now it's time to rest and think about the next one. And I thought that was interesting because we've had a couple of weeks on the training pitch. Obviously, players have had a few days off, but McAllister kind of saying, new shape, new ideas. It looked pretty half-baked to me in that Forest game. Do you think that, there's enough there to build off of, or do you think that, maybe Arne Slot just crumples that plan up and then goes back to what we were doing before?
I mean, the second half performance worked because Liverpool created, the higher chances. I think we literally limited them to, I think it was the header and a block shot. We kept Forest pretty quiet. I do think losing Florian Wirtz in the warm is a factor. I think you should be able to play without, but I think if we knew pre-game we were having Florian Wirtz, he probably would have started Jones right back. He probably would have done McAllister in the 10. But I can understand from the manager's perspective, he went, I'll just do a like-for-like swap, Jones in for Wirtz in the same position, so then I'm not moving everyone around 10 minutes before the game. I mean, 15 minutes into the game, you sort of realise I'm going to have to because we're all over the place on the ball. I don't think Jones had a very good first half. I thought he had a much better second half. Again, he's probably settled into it. I mean, Jones hasn't played a 10 for ages. I can't remember last time Jones played in the 10. His best positions either in one of the double six positions or as a right back. And he
kind of played in that. I mean, I don't know if it was a 10. It was sort of like a false 9 position against City, maybe like a year ago. I thought he did quite well there, actually.
But, but this season he's been used more as a deeper player. Which to be honest has worked well for him. And his stats once he put him at right back or put him as a 6 are really good, and the eye test says it's really good. So I think the team that started the second half against against Forest will be pretty close to what we do against West Ham.
Okay, because so let's talk about that because there's no Florian Wirtz. So Slot came out in that pre-match press conference, confirmed that Florian Wirtz was still out. Worryingly didn't give a timeline for him returning, which, is very typical with Liverpool players. You think they're going to be out for one game and then they're out for 2 weeks. We don't know how long Florian Wirtz is going to be out for, but
the way he phrased it was, it felt like they seemed to think it was just a niggle, and they're almost a little surprised he's not available this week, which is a mild concern because you're like going, well, how long's he out for? But I think back injuries are a bit like knee injuries. Sometimes they're quite hard to judge sometimes for everyone. So
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of nerves involved and things like that, and you can't rush anyone back. But the good news is that we have Frimpong back.
hey,
So, Florian, we have this revolving door thing that's going on at Liverpool where
what everyone has.
anytime someone comes back, someone goes out. It really doesn't matter. But it seems to happen that way. I don't know if he's fit enough to start this match, but let's go through the lineup. So you're thinking the Forest second half lineup. So that would be Allison,
Yep.
Kanate, Virgil, Kirkez, and then you're putting Jones at right back?
I think
Or
I put
are
Jones.
you
I'm torn between Jones and Gomez because as always they put Gomez at right back because it's fair when he came on at right back he was really
you're
good.
also facing Somerville, which is, probably one of their most dangerous assets.
It is, but then you tested Joe Gomez's hamstrings against a very quick player, so that's where the worry is. But he's the better defender.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you do start Gomez at right back, you have an experienced midfield option to bring off the bench in a Jones. Or if you
Yeah.
start Jones at right back, you could Slot could do the trick he did against Forest, which is 25 minutes, half an hour to go, swap both fullbacks, swap both wingers, literally just swap the pace on the edges. So
Mm-hmm.
Jones Gomez, I'm 50-50. You can make an argument for either. There are benefits to both. I think Gomez is the better defender, but you would naturally think Liverpool have more of the ball because naturally the way West Ham play. So Jones is better on the ball, would like to do the inverted thing and use his ability on the ball a bit better, which might free up Salah a little bit more because they're not going to get in each other's way. So I'm sort of flipped between them two. Midfield two, I think, will be Gravenberch and Soboslai because as a two, I think they worked really well. And McAllister
Well, I think
in the
there's going to
10.
be a midfield three because I
Oh,
don't expect McAllister. I think we might revert back to sort of our standard last year's midfield.
well, it'd be those three with Diamond, a one and a two, whichever variation you want of that, it'll be them. And as much as it'll annoy people, it will be Gakpo, it will be Salah. Because I think Neil Axon made a good point. I think this is a fair point, which is this is the game to throw the gauntlet down to Gakpo and Salah, which is right. You've had another week off, not a week off,
Mm-hmm.
but you've had a week training. You saw how you got showed up by Rio for 20 minutes. So this is last chance saloon. If you don't pull your socks up, don't expect to start against Wolves. I don't want to hear little tantrums and all that sort of stuff. I mean, look, I know a lot made it up about the Salah smile thing, which I know upset some people, but the Salah smile thing is like people handle frustration and annoyance in many different ways. I've seen players laugh when that. You can also hear you can actually hear on one of I think it's LSTV as Salah's coming off, they're all shouting he's shite and he's rubbish and what a waste of money and all that sort of stuff. So it could also just be laughing at getting a bit of banter off the crowd. So I think too much was made of it, to be honest. Trust me, if you don't think Mo Salah knows he's not scored in 9 Premier League games, he knows, and that will be burdening him. I'm hoping actually this is the game where he can get that off. And then it'll be Hugo up front because there's no one else.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also think that Hugo is. I mean, he doesn't strike me as much of an issue kind of going forward.
When I say there's no one else, in like if we wanted to rotate Hugo, we couldn't. Well, not until after the international break, anyway.
The one kind of rogue shout again. I don't think that Frimpong is fit to start, but it'd be interesting if he brings Frimpong in for maybe a Mo Salah, or if he does rotate him with a Jones or with a Gomez.
Because what you could do is you can swap both fullbacks, put Gomez on at right back, put Robinson on at left back when you want to rotate both fullbacks, and then you can put Real left and Frimpong right, and put pure pace on the wings.
Well, it's been a while since we've seen that.
And you've still got pure pace. And you still got Chiesa as your wild card option through the centre. It gives you a bit more. It gives Slot a bit more tactical flexibility. I mean, he could just go, I'm going to put Frimpong right back. And no one's really going to go, oh, okay. It's nice that he'll have those options to be able to do that. Because for a while, it's been a little bit paint by numbers subs because he hasn't got anyone else to do that. So, look, you're hoping like when we play Wolves or midweek, is it?
Yeah,
Midweek
so
next
we have two Wolves games. That's our kind of next next two
batch.
games. So we go Wolves and Wolves. So you'd imagine that, you know, Rio will probably start one of them. Maybe the FA Cup game would be my guess.
Him and Chiesa, I think, will both start the FA Cup.
You know, I think Chiesa will get a start there. I think Gomez might get a start at center back. So maybe getting him some minutes either in this game or the midweek game would be a good idea. So there's options. There's not a lot of options, but there's options. You know, I'm looking at West Ham, and they found a little bit of form recently. So they had a 0-0 draw against Bournemouth, followed by a win, and then another 1-1 draw against Manchester United. And then they won against Burnley, and then they lost narrowly by 1 goal to Chelsea. So their form is not bad. I think Nuno Espirito Santo has had enough time to stabilize that team, get them working in a system. I think you've seen Somerville find a purple patch. Obviously, Bowen is still there doing Bowen things. But I don't think that this is a throwaway match. I don't think this is a gimme. I think that this is still...
Not with those two strikers they bought. Those two new strikers they bought, it'll give them a bit of a dimension.
They look like twins, the two strikers. I don't know. I've seen pictures of them side by side, and they have like almost the exact same tattoos as well, which is really, really unnerving. I don't know why.
But I do think they give them a better dimension through the middle. You know, they still do the physical things, which we used to have with Mikel Antonio, but they're just I think they're better footballers. The link plays better. They're going to be a pain in the arse. And Somerville's in really good form. What led them down against the likes of United and Chelsea is actually the finishing wasn't great. Now look, I'm touching wood here, not strings, but that is literally the story of those games, which is they played a lot of good stuff. They should have been further ahead against United before United pegged them back with an excellent goal from Sesko, and they had the chances against Chelsea to at least get a point. But you've got to say what they've done is they've managed to get a bit of a run going when Spurs and Forest have fell back a bit. So they're now 2 points off Forest. So even if they lose today, lose against us, which is what we're all hoping, you know, Forest have got a tricky game. So I think they're going to be still 2-3 points behind Forest, which they'll be all right with. And Spurs have got a tricky game away at Fulham, and they're only 4 points off Spurs. So they've got themselves back in the conversation where they're within a result of potentially overtaking one or two of them. So, look, I don't think it's a gimme. I mean, our record against West Ham is very good, especially at Anfield. We haven't actually dropped points against West Ham since 2016 was the last time we drew a game, and 2015 when we lost. So, but other than that, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 games undefeated at Anfield against them. 8 wins in a row. So that's our home record against West Ham. You know, we historically have a good record against West Ham, whichever version of Liverpool you want to talk about. I think it's Roy. I think it was Brendan Rodgers was the last manager to lose at home to them. So I'm expecting Liverpool to win. I don't expect it to be easy, but I think Liverpool at home. I think this is kind of the game now where they've got to break that little bit of a hoodoo, which is dropping points into the bottom half sides. You know, we've dropped points at home to Burnley's and Leeds, and you know, teams like that who basically we should have beaten comfortably. And to be fair to Burnley, we should have beaten them comfortably. We just couldn't hit a bloody barn door. So I'm hoping we're going to go for 4 clean sheets in a row.
That'd be lovely. Let's do score predictions then, as you've led us so nicely into that little segment. So you know how this works: score predictions and then goal scores for us if we score goals.
Let's go positive. 3-0. Salah, Ekitike, Rio.
Okay.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be nice. I'm gonna go 2-0. I am also feeling the clean sheet. I think Szoboszlai gets one. And then,
put a wild card in. You know you want to do a wild
I'd love like a Frimpong late goal. Like if he does come on and play as a winger, or even if he plays as sort of a marauding fullback. I feel like that would be nice on him, like for him on his return. He just seems like such a likable guy, and I think his temperament is infectious in that team, and I'd love to kind of see him get that extra little boost. We've got Oshin in here saying 2-1 Ekitike, and then Bowen pulls one back. Gakpo gets the winner. Okay, I like that. Robert says Gakpo always scores against West Ham. It would be nice for Gakpo to kind of break his duck against
He
this.
does. He does have a good record. I mean, Mo Salah's record, as always, against most teams is 13 goals in 19
Okay.
against West Ham. So it is a team he historically has a nice record against. I think it was only like City and I think it's like City and Man United. He scored more against. So it's one of his it's one of his teams. You know what I mean? That he normally has a
I
nice
wouldn't
record
mind one
against.
of those fantastic little Salah assists. Like he had one a couple years ago that was absolutely gorgeous. It was an assist. It was like a back heel like slash nutmeg at the same time. It was one of the most beautiful assists I've ever seen. So I wouldn't mind that.
Not quite a Bobby back heel though, is it?
No, it's not, but it was close. Tom is in here. He says 2-0 Salah and McAllister. I think that's a fair shout as well. O'Sheen says, who's the ref tomorrow? I'm not sure off the top of my head. It's not
They're all rubbish.
It's not Kavanagh. Kavanagh is doing the United game. So he was the one that you kind of want to watch out for. Let me see really quick.
I've got a feeling whoever you're going to tell me is going to really upset.
It's probably going to be awful anyways. It doesn't really matter.
Michael Oliver.
Tim Robinson is the referee.
I don't even know who that is.
But that's a good thing. We don't want someone that you know who it is. I think he's actually decent against us.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Michael Oliver. I was about to say, oh, for fuck's sake.
Nope. So Tim Robinson, I think that's actually probably not the worst thing that could happen. I think we'll probably start to wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to talk about for the last kind of 5 minutes of the game? Or not the game, 5 minutes of the show, because we do have a random show coming up. That's going to be on Patreon. I think, let me see if I can throw up that PR code or that QR code, for all of us here. So in case you are interested in watching our random show later, that's going to be Emmett and Gab coming on for that. That link is over there. So you can click that. It's about the price of a cup of coffee, candy bar, any of those things. That'll be starting. Yes, that'll be starting in about 10 minutes. So I just wanted to throw that up and give you guys all a heads up. But
if you want a bit of a preview of what the Patreon's like, if you go onto Patreon, Gav and Ash did a show on Monday, which is free.
Yes.
Which was a big debate about are we being too harsh about Liverpool? Which is,
did you think we were being too harsh? What's your take on that? I'm curious.
No, I don't. I think the best way to put it is we can understand the factors that are causing the season to be what we have, but you can't turn the fan off inside you. And there are just general fundamental things on the pitch that haven't worked. Tactical setups and certain situations with players, which I think are right to criticize. I don't feel like we're a channel who shout sack the manager, do this, shout and scream and all that. So we try and be fairly considerate. It's hard sometimes. Also remember, most shows you and me do are literally 5 minutes after the game's finished.
Yeah, we do our best to be level-headed, but sometimes it's hard.
And some of the comments I see, which like to dig, like have a dig at us, I'm going like, yeah, but this comment's like 3 hours after the game. You try and be as calm and relaxed 5 minutes ago. It's not easy. You're hard not to do that. My situation with the manager is there have been a couple of times where I thought the manager would be off because of the way the season's gone. But it's not a straight black and white swap the manager and everything will be fine, because it's not. There are holes in the squads. There are things that have happened on and off the pitch which haven't helped. The way I can akin to it is, I think you may have spoke about this privately, is I have a similar season with the women's team at the moment. Is I have found the women's team season quite a hard thing to get into this year. Not because they've been bottom, not because they haven't been winning, because of what happened with the former manager, which is different to Josh Tuchel, but it's not. But losing someone, now I didn't know Matt Beard, but I was lucky enough to meet him numerous times, chat to him. He was a lovely, lovely man, and I still find this season a bit hard to get up for because of what's gone. And so I can sort of empathize why sometimes players find it difficult. And I think you did some great work. You talking about the impact of grief on you physically.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're hard things. But I think we also, as fans, we've got to cut ourselves a bit of slack. While we could all be calm and rational, I can be calm and rational now and sort of give reasons why I don't think things are going well, why things are difficult. 20 minutes after a game, if you've just got smashed 3-0 by PSV, where you can't string two passes together. The whole structure of the team was wrong, and we looked like we were going to concede about 8. You can't. You're not going to sit there going, well, it is what it is. You just can't. You are going to criticise them. Sometimes it can be a bit harsh, but sometimes you can also be calm. If anything, I think we've been accused too many times of being a bit too blasé or relaxed over it. So I think in general we get the balance about right.
Well, you know how it is. I mean, someone will always think that you're too positive, and someone will always think that you're too negative, no matter where you stand on the general scale.
And you and me both know a lot of the ones that are very upset with us, we only ever see when we lose. We don't see the we don't see the regulars.
I don't worry about it. We have a really good bunch of people in our chat and in our community here. I'm not worried about it whatsoever.
Apart from Mavo and Red Steve.
There are stalwarts. There, I forget what their names are. But like the two guys that are up in the balcony in the Muppets.
The two grumpy fellas in the one. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're amazing. They're like a core part of the Muppets.
So, to be fair, that could be me and Kev, to be fair.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You guys can fight it out. But that's kind of how I see either you and Kev or Red Steve and Avo. I'm just kind of looking at some of the games this weekend. I just want to wrap this up really quick in terms of like predictions, maybe what you think will happen, because right now we're currently in a situation where Wolverhampton Wanderers are beating Aston Villa 1-0. It's in the 4th minute of extra time. But going into this weekend, there's a couple of exciting games going on. So I'm just going to kind of give you the highlights. We'll do 2 games from Saturday and a couple games from Sunday. So let's do Newcastle versus Everton and Leeds versus City. What are your predictions for those 2 games?
Newcastle 2-0.
Okay.
City 3-1.
All right. And then Sunday we have a couple of big ties. Let's do United versus Palace and Arsenal against Chelsea.
United 2-1. I don't see United losing to Palace at home.
Okay.
And Arsenal, I've got a sneaky feeling for a 2-2. Okay. Don't know why. I think it's which Chelsea are very erratic to pick. I think we've seen that. I think that's probably why they're like us in the top 4 battle. On their day, Chelsea are absolutely ball-like. It's just which Chelsea turns up. Also, if Chelsea can keep 11 men on the pitch, which will be handy.
I think they're like 1 away from the all-time record for red cards. It's definitely one of the things that they, need to improve on. Let me see if there's anyone in the chat here that wants to throw in a couple of predictions for that. Sheen says he just wants Chelsea beat. He doesn't care. Brian says Wolves pulling out the results far too late. I mean, you never know. Weird things have happened.
Off the line, apparently.
Uh-oh, that's not good. Okay, let's not tempt fate. Oshin says 2-0 Arsenal, both set piece goals. I don't know. I feel like
we don't want to see that. It's probably true, unfortunately.
I feel like it's probably at this point in time we probably want Arsenal to beat Chelsea, unfortunately, which doesn't feel great in my body, but that's where we're at.
I think a draw, because a draw doesn't help either.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, we want points on the board. The truth of the matter is that we have the first game, I think, out of this group, so we have the ability to put pressure on Manchester United and Chelsea in a way that we haven't really been able to do before. So yes, we have a mixed.
It was Villa who had a shot cleared off the line.
Of course it was. Well, as long as it was cleared off the line, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to let all of you guys go and watch kind of the last minute or so of that game as we get ready for our random show. Like I said, if you're interested in that, the last time we had a random show with Emmett and Gav and I, it kind of all went off the rails. There are no rules.
2-0 Wolves.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll stay on until we get the final whistle here.
It's just flashed my phone 2-0. Oh, get it.
Okay. Well, I'm not watching the game. But this is kind of fun. I enjoy this sort of like final 20 when we're actually benefiting from this. It's been a while since we've had that happen. So Wolves 2-0. What does that take Wolves up to in terms of points?
It takes Wolves up to 13 points.
Okay. Well done, Wolves. You're
They're only 14 points off safety.
Okay, well, something to work for. I don't know. I mean, who scored? Was it Mane again? Because he looks like a real prospect.
It was one of the other Gomez's. So João Gomez scored the first one, and Rodrigo Gomez has got the second. They love a
Okay.
Gomez in They love a Gomez,
Well,
don't they?
they are very Portuguese based, so that is not surprising. But yeah, let's leave it at that. So if it's 2-0, that's I'm gonna feel comfortable kind of tapping out at that and saying yay. That's great. Davey says, "Oh, what time do you call this?" Davey, don't worry. So we did the preview at 9 o'clock your time, and then we're doing a random show at 10 o'clock. So pop over onto Patreon. Come on to our random show. If you missed this, I apologize. We did touch on Newcastle's kind of draw and horrible run of fixtures in March, so we do feel for you and sympathize for you. But maybe turn your notifications on YouTube, and then you won't miss a show. And I mean that lovingly. But guys, we're going to tab out for now. We're going to move over to our other Patreon service. So if you want to come join us to talk about anything except football, we'll be over there. Otherwise, I think we will call it a night. It looks like they've also called it a night at either Molyneux or away. I don't know. Is it Molyneux? Okay, so they've called it a night at Molyneux, so it's full time 2-0. So that's Villa dropping points. So already the weekend kind of going in our favor. That would be lovely. Let's end on that, because I love to end on a happy note. Chris, can you take us out of here?
Oh yeah, that's me, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, it is. All right, see you guys later.
We'll be back
tomorrow with post-match and post-match and all the things. So we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you later.